Let's unpack this. We're talking about an operational manual for, well, the most complex machine on the planet, the human brain.
That's right.
We are diving deep into John Medina's Brain Rules. This is a set of 12 principles, all meticulously researched, to help us survive and, thrive at work, at home, in school, basically everywhere.
And this isn't office folklore or some self-help platitude. Medina applies what he calls the Medina Grump Factor, or MGF,
The MGF, right?
which means any research he includes has to be published in a peer-reviewed journal, and, this is the important part, it has to have been successfully replicated multiple times.
So this is the hard science of peak performance.
Exactly.
And that's our mission today.
Yeah.
We want to deliver these highly actionable, often really counterintuitive insights that can, well, radically improve how you learn and how you think.
To really get these rules, though, you have to accept one core evolutionary context. It's fascinating, actually. Every single rule connects back to how our ancestors lived. Our brains were built to solve problems related to survival in a totally unstable outdoor environment,
And crucially, in motion.
in nearly constant motion.
Yeah.
We're talking about walking, maybe running, as much as 12 miles a day.
12 miles.
We simply have not evolved past that hardware requirement.
So if that's our baseline, a brain designed for 12 miles of daily walking, then modern life, where so many of us sit for 8, 10 hours straight.
We're working directly against our own design.
Which brings us right to the first massive biological shock. This is brain rule number 2. Exercise boosts brain power. This isn't just about your waistline, it's a primary driver of your cognitive function.
The evidence is just. It's conclusive. People who exercise consistently outperform sedentary people, the proverbial couch potatoes, across the board.
And this isn't a small edge, is it?
Not at all. It's measurable in long-term memory, in abstract reasoning, sustained attention, complex problem solving. It just makes your brain work better.
And the preventative benefits are just staggering. We're talking about aerobic exercise, just 30 minutes, 2 or 3 times a week, cutting your lifetime risk for general dementia by 50%.
50%. And for Alzheimer's disease, that number jumps to over 60%.
It's like a miracle cure that we're all just ignoring.
And what's really beautiful is the biology behind it. When you exercise, you increase blood volume, you're creating new capillaries in a part of the brain called the dentate gyrus,
Which is key for memory, right? Part of the hippocampus.
the memory center. But it's more than blood flow. Exercise stimulates something called BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor.
The miracle grow, the brain fertilizer.
Exactly. BDNF is essential. It keeps your existing neurons healthy, but it also encourages the growth of new cells. It's like a shield against the chemical damage of stress and aging.
So the takeaway for you isn't just about long-term fitness, it's about continuous oxygen. Just getting up, walking to the water cooler, even fidgeting. It's a nod to that 12-mile-a-day design, and your brain rewards it instantly.
And that physical problem is, of course, compounded by the second great modern killer, a lack of rest.
Right. We all know sleep isn't optional, but sometimes the extreme examples really drive it home, like the DJ Peter trip.
Oh, yeah.
He stayed awake for 200 straight hours, and he started having paranoid psychosis, visual hallucinations. That's how fast the brain just disintegrates without rest. This is brain rule number 3. Sleep well, think well.
You can think of sleep as this constant, exhausting battle that's waged inside your skull
A battle between what?
between two powerful opposing forces. You have your circadian arousal system, that's process C, trying to keep you awake. And then you have the homeostatic sleep drive, process S, which is just that mounting pressure to crash.
And that's what causes that mid-afternoon nap zone we all feel.
It's the conflict. It takes a huge amount of resources just to stay awake during that dip.
And when you consistently lose that battle, the cognitive cost is, it's just staggering.
It is. If you take a high-performing student, an A student, and they start getting under 7 hours of sleep a night, their performance metrics crash. They start matching the scores of the bottom 9% of students.
Wow. So it just cripples everything: attention, executive function.
Working memory, logical reasoning, you name it.
But the physiological toll is what should really grab your attention. If you take healthy 30-year-olds and you restrict their sleep to just 4 hours a night for 6 days,
Just 6 days.
parts of their body chemistry revert to what you'd see in a 60-year-old. Their ability to use glucose fails. The risk for diabetes and hypertension just skyrockets.
And for learning, it's completely non-negotiable. Sleep is when memory consolidation happens. The brain literally replays the day's learning events while you sleep.
Like the rats running mazes in their dreams.
That's the famous experiment. That furious replay, especially during slow-wave sleep, is what moves learning from that volatile short-term bucket into robust long-term storage. You disrupt that cycle, you disrupt the learning.
Yeah. Speaking of disruption, let's pivot to the greatest myth of modern work. The idea that we can do several things at once. This lands us on brain rule number 6. We don't pay attention to boring things.
Right, the 10-minute rule. You have maybe 30 seconds to grab someone's initial attention, and then you've got this biological clock that's set for about 10 minutes.
Yes.
After that,
Attention just dives.
dips right off.
So if our brains are designed to look for something new or relevant every 10 minutes, why do so many of us brag about being great multitaskers? Shouldn't we have adapted to this by now?
That is the fiction we tell ourselves. The reality, and we can see this in brain imaging, is that the brain is a sequential processor,
One thing at a time.
one high-level cognitive task at a time. And studies on so-called heavy media multitaskers show they perform consistently worse than light users on almost every cognitive test.
Worse.
Yeah, especially when it comes to filtering out irrelevant information and organizing memory. Their minds are they're confused by all the interference.
That explains why switching tasks is so exhausting. You feel like you're doing more, but you're actually slowing yourself down.
Precisely. Every time you switch from an email to a Slack message, let's say, your brain has to shut down the rules for task 1 and then activate the rules for task 2.
And that switch takes time.
Precious time. It leads to a cumulative 50% increase in the time it takes to do things, and up to 50% more errors. It is the physiological reason that driving while talking on a cell phone, even hands-free,
Is like driving drunk.
it's functionally identical.
Yeah.
You are mentally impaired by the friction of that constant switching.
So if the clock runs out every 10 minutes, how do you reset it? How do you keep people engaged? Medina calls it bait the hook.
Yeah, you have to introduce something emotionally charged and relevant to restart that attention cycle.
Emotion.
Emotions are like the chemical post-it notes of the brain. When something emotionally charged happens, a surprise, a joke, a really visual story, the amygdala releases dopamine. That dopamine tells the brain, stop, pay attention, remember this.
So once we've hooked their attention, the next challenge is making it stick. We've all felt that panic where you realize you've forgotten 90% of what you just heard. That brings us to brain rule number 7. Repeat to remember.
It's a depressing truth, really. Hermann Ebbinghaus discovered this over a century ago. Without any review, we forget 90% of what we learn within 30 days.
And most of that forgetting happens almost immediately, right?
A vast majority of it happens in the first few hours. New memories are incredibly volatile. They're like wet concrete.
Haven't set yet.
Exactly. The process of really settling a memory into its long-term structure system consolidation, that can take years. If you try to cram, the new information just interferes with the old.
So cramming for an exam it's a terrible strategy.
Awful. The only way to build robust memory is through strategically planned, spaced repetition. You revisit the information just as you're about to forget it.
Which leads to how we encode those memories in the first place. This is brain rule number 5. Every brain is wired differently. Learning isn't just filling a bucket, it's literally rewiring the physical connections in your skull.
We hear about brain plasticity all the time, but the reality of it is profoundly personalized.
How personalized are we talking?
Well, look at the famous example of the Jennifer Aniston neuron.
Right.
A single specialized cell in one patient's brain that only fired when shown pictures of the actress Jennifer Aniston. Nothing else.
That's specific.
Or think about the neurosurgeon George Ogeman. During certain brain surgeries, he had to map his patient's language areas individually with electrical stimulation while they were awake.
Why?
Because the location isn't standardized. No two people store information in the exact same physical place. Even identical twins will encode the same event slightly differently based on their unique perspectives.
That's powerful. And if the wiring is that personal, we must have to rely on one sense above all others to communicate. That would be brain rule number 9. Vision trumps all other senses.
Vision is an absolute resource hog. It consumes about half of the brain's entire processing capacity.
Wow.
The classic illustration is the wine tasting experiment. Researchers dyed white wine red and gave it to expert sommeliers.
And what happened?
The experts immediately started using vocabulary for red wine. They described flavors and aromas appropriate only for reds. Their highly trained senses of smell and taste were completely overridden by a simple visual trick.
So we remember best through pictures, not words, which means reading text, our main method for education, is actually highly inefficient.
It is. Your brain has to treat every single letter like a complex, tiny picture. It verifies its features before it can build it into a word, then a sentence, then a concept. It's a huge bottleneck.
But there is one major sensory exception to this. Rule number 8, sensory integration and the unique power of smell.
Right. Smell is the only sense that bypasses the thalamus, the brain's sensory control tower, and gets VIP access directly to the amygdala, the emotional center.
That's the Proust effect. A smell from your childhood can just instantly transport you back.
Exactly. It's an ancient, powerful memory channel that's deeply tied to emotion.
And finally, we have to talk about the most toxic rule of all. The one factor that works to actively dismantle all our efforts to learn. Brain rule number 4. Stressed brains don't learn the same way.
And Medina is clear here. Stress isn't just a feeling. It is a measurable physiological response. And the real killer in chronic stress is the perceived loss of control.
The more control you feel you've lost, the worse the stress gets.
Precisely. Our bodies evolved a fight-or-flight response that's meant to last for seconds, just long enough to escape a predator.
But now we trigger that same massive biological response, a flood of cortisol over a stressful project deadline or a financial worry.
And the response lasts for days, weeks, or even months.
And that chronic cortisol is toxic.
It directly attacks the hippocampus, the memory fortress. Cortisol literally disconnects the neural networks that encode and retrieve your memories. Even worse, it turns off the gene that makes BDNF.
So it turns off the brain fertilizer we get from exercise.
It turns off your own defense mechanisms at the cellular level.
The results are just devastating. You see things like learned helplessness. In the real world, emotional stress from home-like unresolved marital conflict is one of the biggest predictors of poor school performance in kids.
When the brain is under siege, it cannot process new information.
So what does this all mean for you, the learner, trying to design your life? We've gone through these incredible brain rules, and the synthesis is a profoundly countercultural set of instructions. You must move, respecting that 12-mile-a-day brain. That's the exercise rule. You have to break your work up every 10 minutes, respecting your attention. And you have to repeat and revisit everything, respecting how volatile memory is.
We're not obsolete. Our brains are these incredible survival machines built for an active, challenging world. And designing our environments to respect these deep biological realities, that's the real shortcut to thriving.
And here's where it gets really interesting, something for you to mull over. We saw from Dr. Ojimin's work that your brain is uniquely wired. No two brains store the language center in the same place, not even in identical twins.
That individuality dictates everything.
So, given that profound individuality, what does it mean that we continue to impose standardized learning and standardized work environments on a population where, at a physical level, no two brains store the same information in the same way?
That finding demands that you engage in continuous self-experimentation to figure out what works for your unique biological hardware.
Which personal brain rule are you going to test and integrate next week? We'll see you on the next deep dive.